After a careful review of the VISTA performance measures, developing an online app, and then doing some internal user testing, the AmeriCorps VISTA Impact app was just released on a new VISTA campus for use by supervisors, leaders, and members. And as VISTA's main liaisons for reporting, performance measurement, and project management, you as state office directors and specialists, your knowledge of how its application works will help to inform your project and site on a more immediate level. So we've got a number of people who are here with us on this session today. There you see me. We were hoping Patrick could join us, but he's been called away to another meeting at headquarters. We have two of our colleagues from Campaign Consultation, Michelle Bond and Rebecca Starr. They were involved in development and testing of the app, so you'll hear particularly from Rebecca about the app. She'll give us a walkthrough, so you'll be able to actually see it. And in addition, we have Rob Cox, program specialist, in the office in D.C. And Rob, of course, has been so heavily involved with the development of the performance measures. So we wanted Rob to be here in case any questions come up related to performance measures and how they intersect with this app. And then one more, Jess, to let you know about, although I don't have a picture, is Teresa O'Halloran from the Oregon State Office. And again, Teresa has worked with us on a number of things relating to performance measures in the app. And so we thought it'd be nice to have the perspective from a state office. So that's who you'll be seeing and hearing from today. And now here's a quick review of what you're going to see and hear. So for our agenda, we're going to talk about the AmeriCorps VISTA Impact app and let you know what it is. We'll talk a little bit about the benefits that it offers, particularly for VISTA projects and VISTA members, because we see that it's a useful thing there. We'll take a look at the app itself, so you'll have a sense of what it looks like and how it works. And then we'll provide you with an opportunity to ask any questions that may come up. So a little bit about the AmeriCorps VISTA Impact app. This app was designed to help VISTAs, primarily VISTA members, track their activities throughout their service term. All of the data fields that are in the app were created in conjunction with the CNCF performance measures, so it makes it easy for members to gather stuff in a standardized way and for us then to roll that up and get a more standardized picture of the service that's actually being performed. Our goal with the app is to improve the ease and accuracy of how VISTA members are tracking their activities. So rather than them having to try to remember statistics at a later time, they can use the app to capture data from any location. They can send real-time reports to their supervisors from a smartphone, a tablet, or computer. It's important to note that the VISTA Impact app is intended to help VISTAs recall their activities, what it is that they're doing, and some of the results of their work. But it's not meant to replace any collection instrument that's already established within their project or their organization. As I alluded to earlier, we will be providing training for supervisors and leaders, as well as to VISTA members, so that they can become aware of the app and know how to use it. And as you can see on the slide, there are several sections within the app that we'll see in just a minute. But so as VISTAs go about capturing the results of their activities, they can collect them as they relate to resource development, volunteer recruitment and training, serving veterans and military families, and then all of the other activities they perform that relate to capacity building. So what are the benefits of offering this app? Well, the Impact app has the data fields already organized into categories that line up with the performance measures the corporation and VISTA are using. So once a VISTA completes an activity, they can track their progress and then send the information to their supervisors directly from the app. The Impact app includes a glossary, so if anything's unclear, a VISTA can just quickly tap or click and receive uniform definitions for important terms that are related to the performance measures. So, for example, if a VISTA doesn't know what would be considered an in-kind resource, they can click on the definition directly within the app, read about it, and understand before they submit the data. The app is accessible through a variety of devices, and VISTAs will not have to use smartphones to enter the data. So any concerns that, oh, we have VISTAs but not everybody has a smartphone should not be a concern, because you can use a desktop computer, a laptop, a tablet like an iPad, or a smartphone to use this app. If this is in a remote area and they don't have access to Wi-Fi, they won't have to use a data plan from their phone. Like I said, they can use a computer or a tablet, something that's connected to the internet more directly than using a wireless signal. All the information that gets entered will be saved and synchronized to make it easy to switch between devices. So if you are out in the field and you enter something from your phone, then you get back to the office, you can pull it up on your computer and see all of the information that was previously submitted. All right, so a quick look at how it works. So most of us, when we think of the word app, you're probably picturing a widget or a program that you need to download from an app store and actually save or download to your device. This is not that kind of app. The Impact app is technically a mobile web page, so that there is no downloading that's needed. You can link to it directly from the VISTA campus, and you can bookmark the page in your internet favorites for easy access. As I mentioned earlier, the data will be accessible through a variety of devices. So again, you can use it from wherever you are and see all of the data that's been entered. So as long as someone has internet access, they are able to use this tool. All right, so that's kind of the high level, give you the background around this. And now I'm going to turn you over to Rebecca Starr, who's going to walk us through the app and show us how it works. So Rebecca?
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to be sharing my screen with you so you can see the app. If at any point you'd like for me to go back to something or, to zoom in on something, just please let me know. You can communicate with us in the chat. And I'm going to pull up the app right now. And the first thing I just want to point out is that the app was created with mobile devices in mind. So you may see on the screen the icons look a little bit off-center. That's only because it's on a widescreen computer on a desktop, and so that's why they look a little bit off here. But on a mobile device or a tablet, it'll all be lined up correctly. And I've also zoomed in a little bit over here so you can see. This is the home screen. Once the new VISTA campus launches, which will be later this week, there'll be a link available on the campus that VISTA members can click onto and easily sign on with their VISTA campus credentials. So it takes the guesswork out of having to remember two separate sets of credentials. But once they're all logged in, this is the screen that appears. And you'll notice that there's sort of 4 different buckets on here. There's the My Report, which is where all of the actual data entries go. There's the settings bucket, which is basically where you can put in your members, can put in their supervisor information, can make updates to their site information, so their phone number and address, anything like that. There's the glossary section, which again has definitions for different terms that are used throughout the app, in addition to definitions for the performance measures. And there's another cool way that Vistas can actually check definitions that I'll show you in just a sec. And then finally, there's the help bucket, which is an area that has some answers to some of the more general questions. So we'll just go ahead and jump right in here to the My Report section. And I've gone ahead and filled out a couple of entries. We'll take some time to walk through each of these different areas. The first thing you'll notice is that they are aligned with performance measures. So I'll just take a second to click through each one. It's really important that VISTA members know what is included within each bucket here. So once they do actually have some information to enter, they know where they can go to enter it. So that it's important that they take some time to really get to know what's included in each section. And so this top section right here, the resource section, you'll notice that there are two areas to track cash resources and in-kind resources. And I'll go a little bit further into those in just a second. I do want to point out that, how I mentioned earlier that there's another cool way for Vistas to find definitions. Let's say that they come to this and they realize that they're not quite sure what in-kind resources is or even how it's defined within the app. They can just click on this question mark over here, and it pulls up the definition and also some related terms. So they can check it out right in the app here. Okay, and I'll just go back to the report page. So underneath volunteers and staff, there's different areas to track recruitment of volunteers, management, any sort of training activities. And if at any point, either, feel free to write into the Q&A or into the chat box, if it's unclear as to what might sort of be drilled down in each of these, we can go over them in a little bit more detail. But again, just providing sort of a high-level overview of what's under each area. You can track volunteer training, hours of volunteer service, and any sort of staff training time as well. Back over here, another important measure for veterans and military families. Here, any sort of details about veterans served or active duty military served as well can be tracked in this category. There's My Site, which looks a little bit more general here, but once you click through, it's really a place to be able to track the more general capacity building services, any sort of community assessments that are completed, volunteer management practices that are created or updated, and any sort of new systems and business processes that are worked on. And then finally down here, this category was actually something that was created after some user testing that we did. A lot of our testers who were members and supervisors reported that it would be helpful to have sort of an all-encompassing category where Vistas could track additional activities. And really, one thing we want to emphasize is that the app was created just to track activities identified in the VISTA assignment description. So really, it's an area where if a VISTA is not sure if there's another category for an activity that they've done, they at least have a place to track it where the supervisor can go in and see, because they may do something that they think might not fit under these categories, but it actually, upon further examination, may be just what they need. So we want to make sure that we're tracking all of those activities. And here, there's an area where they can create another category, so to really help them keep track of all of those activities. But again, it really speaks to, that they should make sure that they understand the different performance measures and what's included in each area. One thing I can show you too is, let's just go into this cache resources here. These are how entries are created. So you'll see that there are a couple of different entries in here, and I can simply add an entry just by clicking on this top button. And so you'll notice, you may be wondering, what might be the best way for a VISTA who's just busy, at their site to be able to learn more about what goes into each category. And you'll notice here that there is a little bit of a description at the bottom of the page that just describes the information that they should put into this entry form. So again, let's just say that, there's a VISTA who is tracking membership. So I'm going to put in, let's say we got a $40 donation. And then it was, let's say that Michelle did. And so these notes fields at the bottom, what this is for is we're really, really encouraging VISTAs to use this area, because let's say that there's another VISTA at their site who tracked, a similar task. There might be all of the same information, but there might be some sort of an indicator that sets it apart from what else is being done. So we really want to make sure that, VISTAs are keeping notes as detailed as possible, and this will really help supervisors once they receive a report to be able to narrow it down and put it into their own tracking mechanism. So let's just say received and check number, let's say 300. Then once they've put in as much detailed information as possible, which, by the way, VISTAs can go back in and revise these at any time. So if a little bit more information is needed, they can go ahead and put that in. And then we click Done. And there it is, right at the top. And so once a VISTA has been tracking their activities, let's say that they have discussed with their supervisor that they're going to touch base once a week. One thing that they can do is they can send reports to themselves and to their supervisor. So let's say that a VISTA wants to see a wrap-up of everything that they've done. They can click on this Send button, which appears at the bottom of the My Report page. And a little message comes up just letting them know that that's where they want to send it, and they click OK. And so they can do the same thing with their supervisor as well. Okay, and I am going to quickly show you what the report looks like here. I have a screenshot. And so this is what the report looks like. And again, this is not the full copy here. This is just a little image showing just the top area. So again, and this again is a report that goes to the supervisor. So you'll see that it has information about the VISTA, their service term, the supervisor information, and the site information, which I just plugged in with my own information here. And it provides you as well with let me get my little pointer here. So you'll see here the report actually shows all of the information that is included within that particular VISTA's account. So one thing that we've done and that came out of our user testing is we really wanted to make it clear for supervisors to see which entries were the most recent ones, because they may have already tracked some of these down here already. So we have them in date order, and there's all of the pertinent information. There's the amount, and you'll see that the notes fields come into this tool as well. And then there's the total amount right there. And so it just continues down the page for all of the different categories that were in the app. So you'll notice here again with the in-kind resources, some of the more pertinent information comes along as well. So how much, what it was worth, who it was from, and any of the notes fields in there. So it really provides the supervisor with a high glance both a high glance at all of the different information that was entered, but can also drill down with these more detailed entries. All right. And I'm just going to pull up the presentation again. And again, in the Q&A section, if there's anything that you would like to go through, we can go ahead and do that as well. And so what might your next steps be with this app as a state office rep? So you can help your sponsors and members learn more about the app, both by sharing the link once it's available on the VISTA campus later this week, which we'll be following up with an email and all of that information as well. We do have a webinar for supervisors and for leaders, another training on the Impact app, which is going to take place on August 19th at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And that link will be available on the VISTA campus to register, but we'll also be reaching out to supervisors and leaders as well. And to learn more about the app and how you can provide answers to different sponsor questions, we are going to have a follow-up question and answer session for supervisors and for leaders and for you as well on August 21st at 2 o'clock p.m. Really, that'll just give you a chance to listen in and hear what additional questions the supervisors and leaders may have so you can best address those. And again, the registration links for those upcoming sessions are going to be available on the VISTA campus. And so for some more information, again, this link is going to be active once the VISTA campus is up, which is going to be later this week again. But this will be a direct link to the page on the VISTA campus, which has all of the information about what the app is and how it can be used, as well as the direct link to the mobile website itself. And we also have a link to VISTA's performance measures. And again, if any questions came up for you while we were going over the app, we can certainly answer those for you today. And I'll also be sending a follow-up email with all of these links available in there. All right.
So Rebecca, before we move on, this is Andy, I just wanted to add a couple other things. I was reminded of a couple things. So one is someone had asked in the Q&A whether this is a native app, meaning it's something that has to be downloaded to your device, and the answer to that, of course, is no. It's actually a mobile website that can be accessed through any browser, whether in a mobile device or a regular computer. And if someone is accessing it through a mobile device, the first time that it's accessed, the user is prompted with an option to add this to their home screen. So then what that means is when they go back in, it will actually display an icon on the screen of their phone. So it looks like an app, and they can just click to open the page, but it doesn't require a download. So anybody who's concerned about the download aspect doesn't have to worry about that. But also if you're worried like, oh, it's just a link and people will forget it, we've got an option for that as well. And then just to follow up, earlier, Rebecca, you shared that area that we added to the app for additional data collection. So if visitors are using this app and they or their supervisor is interested in having them collect other things, as you mentioned, we first want them to make sure that it doesn't fit into another category, but then they can track other things. And so an example of that could be, within the app in the resource development area, we ask them to report both cash and in-kind resources that they actually receive, but they may be interested in tracking how many grant applications they submitted, or how many requests they did, or how many of a certain activity they attempted. So they can report that in the additional activities area, because of course all we're really concerned about is what were the results. So how much money did they raise? How many volunteers did they recruit? But for their own purposes, and to get a sense of what's working and what's not, they might want to track all of their attempts or activities or events related to that. So just a couple examples about how that additional activity piece could be useful. And then would this be a good time for us to hear from Teresa, just to talk about, from your perspective, how you see this possibly being useful?
Well, sure. First, I want to share with everyone, so I had some VISTAs and supervisors that were testing it, and being computer system, I was really curious. And Patrick said, if you want, you can go ahead and click around and see. So I tried it from my desktop, and it looks, it looked very similar to what you see. Then I tried it on my work phone, and it worked fine on the work droid that I used to have. And I didn't have an iPhone at that time to test it with. And then I tried, just for the heck of it, my old droid, because it's an older version, and it's, for those of you that are familiar with the operating system, it's like an old version 3 honeycomb, so it's not even like jelly bean or even ice cream, which are their earlier or later ones, and it did not open. It was not visible. It just was a blank screen, and it just sat there. So, I mean, that gave me some information that if someone was trying to use it on an older device, older smartphone, and I kind of expected that because I can get into e-grants using my smartphone, my work one, but I couldn't get into e-grants, and a lot of other things were blocked on my older phone. So anyway, I also was a little hesitant about the issue on using data, but there is that workaround. But I do think it's important for us to make sure that supervisors are aware. And a lot of my projects also use Google Docs, but occasionally there's issues in connection, and so I thought this would be a really good replacement for Google Docs. And I liked it. And also Alyssa, who will be the new program specialist in Washington State, she was one of our supervisors that trained it, so we'll actually have 2 state office people with experience in the Pacific cluster. Yay! I don't know what else I can add, because I didn't have anybody to talk to, because I wasn't a supervisor role and I wasn't a VISTA. I was just a nosy outsider.
Well, that's helpful, and I appreciate your diving in and testing it on various mobile browsers and looking back at earlier versions of Android. I did not have the chance to look into that, so it's good to know. So if we, hear from projects or members who say, hey, I tried this thing, it doesn't work at all, I get a blank screen, then we might say, well, what kind of device are you using, or how recent is it? And that might be a nice troubleshooting approach.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. Well, thanks, Teresa.
Welcome.
And sorry, this is Becca. Thanks so much, Teresa. We actually have available a screenshot of the opening screen for, I know there was a question about, how it's added to your home screen on your device. And so we actually have a screenshot available. Let me just make sure. Let's see. I'm about to pull it up right now. So this is for an iPhone, but it is programmed to be able to tell what type of device you have. So if you have a Droid, these directions at the bottom here will change. So you'll see. And that's again, the first time that you pull it up. So it'll just direct you to add it to your home screen.
That looks great. I think even I can figure that out. All right.
Okay.
Anything? Should we move into the Q&A piece now?
Sounds good. And we do have the operator available to be able to provide some directions as to how you can ask questions over the phone.
Thank you. We'll begin the question and answer session. If you'd like to ask a question now, please press *1. Please unmute your phone and record your name clearly. I'll introduce you by name. To withdraw your request, you can press *2. We'll wait just a moment for questions. Again, that's *1.
Okay, we did have a question come in that I thought would be beneficial to the group to hear. There was a question about the back button being so far away from the other content, which it does, on the screen it did look like it was very much out there. The reason for that was just because it's on a widescreen computer, and so on a smartphone or tablet or normal size desktop, it appears much closer to the rest of the data that's available on the screen. So no worries on that.
Yeah, showing no questions on the phone. Again, that's *1 if you have a question.
This is Teresa, and I have a question, and I didn't test this, but does it automatically save when you go from screen to screen for them? Or do they have to, manually save?
So there is a way of manually saving, and I can just pull it up real quick so you can take a look. All right. And you'll see right here, once information is entered, if you just click done, it'll actually save the entry. And again, anything can be revised at any time, and all you have to do once it is revised is just click the done button, and it'll save the most recent one. Unfortunately, it doesn't save any data that has say that this entry is changed. There isn't an additional entry that's saved with the old information, so it's all the most recent information that's put into that entry.
Okay. Well, so for those of us with fat fingertips.
Sure.
Yeah, and we have a question from Kat, and she says, will visitors need to log into the campus every time they want to enter data, or will their login information be saved?
So their login information will be saved once it is either the link is bookmarked or added to the device. They will just be able to click on it and just start entering. So there's no additional need to log in.
Great. And Sarah asks, can you describe how it will look when supervisors or CNCF staff log in? What data will appear?
So that's a good question. For supervisors, if they were to log into the app, it would look similar to what members have. For CNCS staff, again, if they log into the app itself, they will have an option to be able to log into or a button that they click on to access the database. CNCS staff, or VISTA headquarters, I should say, has access to all of the information that has been entered into the app. But for supervisors and for the state office, the app itself just looks similar to what VISTA members have.
Yeah, and Rebecca, if I could just add on to that. So the way that supervisors will see the data from their VISTA members is when at either predetermined interval or when a VISTA completes a certain amount of activity, they will then send a report to the supervisor. And those reports actually come in the form of an email.
So will it ever be possible to export the data so that they can just copy and paste it into their eGrants reports?
Well, Rebecca, correct me if I'm, I was going to say correct me if I'm wrong, but I think now they can copy and paste the data as it comes in the report. They might, they would need to, make sure that they're putting the data in the correct field. But they could, right, in the format that it's currently in, they can copy that. Is that right?
Right, that's correct. So it's all it all comes in as an email, just a regular HTML email. So it's all editable. So you can copy it, paste it, make any edits to it if need be.
I think that's really helpful.
And this is Rob. I think this is really exciting, and if I could just add that this is and I think there are a couple of different places where it points folks to the performance measurement instructions. So the app itself is not the kind of official record that the organization may need to keep. And so I would just caution that as CNCS staff, if we're looking into the data just from the app itself, we may not want to use that data to say, well, this is what the sponsor would report on officially as like part of their progress report, because it might not have been, it's data that probably they haven't quite screened through yet themselves. So just that word of caution.
Right. Thanks so much, Rob. Yeah, it looks like we did have a question that came in regarding the accuracy of data, and really, the the purpose of the app is essentially just to make it a little easier for VISTAs to be able to report their data to their supervisors. So again, it doesn't take the place of anything that is currently being done. Again, it's just a basic way for them to report data already kind of wrapped up into these categories, and something that could be easily done, from the field or, very instantaneously.
Yeah, and Rebecca, if I could add to that, I think the interest in outside headquarters seeing the data is really for us to understand how the tool is being used and to get a sense of how many people are using it, perhaps how many projects and that sort of thing. We're not taking the actual numbers in there and counting that as anything. We're not looking at that and saying, oh yeah, project ABC has only recruited 2 volunteers because that's all that was in the app. We're not looking at it that way at all. Instead, we want to just be able to use that as some sort of a process evaluation to get a sense of if the tool is being used, how much it's being used, and to see if there are any patterns that we notice that could be helpful in either informing other people about the availability of it, or if we see that maybe there's some additional instruction or training that we make available, those kinds of things. So we're not going to go in and look at the data to say, aha, here's what happened. In terms of actual VISTA project outcomes, we're really just interested to know how the tool itself is being utilized. And then we'll let the sponsors themselves report the data as they always have, and as Rob indicated, that they would take what's reported through this app and report it through other mechanisms. They will compile all of that information, verify it before they report it through eGrants. So eGrants continues to be the official system of record.
Great. I did just want to quickly address Abby's question in the chat, essentially about if you select to save it to the home screen, does the app become your home screen rather than what has already been selected? So what happens with that is it actually, depending on your device, what it'll do is it'll look a little bit like an app if it's on your iPhone. It'll just pop up as an additional, like, how am I trying to describe this? An icon, yes. Michelle's like, icon. It'll be another icon on your iPhone. And so it won't take the place of like Safari or any sort of page that pops up. And if you're doing it on your computer, you could bookmark it in the regular fashion as you would with any other web page.
Great. And I see Sarah asked sort of a follow-up question. Do you anticipate this information being direct loaded into a progress report once the progress report is completed online for our grantees? And again, I think the answer there is no, because we don't want to assume that every project will be using this or that every VISTA within a project will be using it. And so, and also the supervisor and maybe the project manager will need to be looking at the data to make sure that we don't have two VISTAs double reporting the same numbers. So maybe, two VISTAs are working on a fundraiser event, and they're both so eager to report the results that they both put in the same data. And so without that review happening at the site level and then at the sponsor level, the data itself won't be very useful. So we do need to keep this disconnected, I would say, from the official progress report so that it takes the active involvement of the sponsor to pull the data from here, make whatever adjustments needed before it gets submitted in the list. So that's our goal there. For some, it may seem like an extra step, but we want to make sure that the quality control aspect is there.
Great. Are there any questions on the line?
I'm showing no questions.
Okay. I can, while we're waiting for those, any last questions to come in, I will provide my contact information as well. But the official app help email address is up on the screen now. So if anyone has any questions that pertain to whether there's any login difficulty or any questions about a category or any issues with receiving reports, this is the email address that you can contact us with.
This is Teresa. I have a quick question. Will you guys be continuing to provide help on this, or will it eventually be turned over to the hotline like the rest of the system tools?
That's a good question. I think for the for the foreseeable future, we'll be managing it sort of in-house, either through VISTA headquarters and with our partners, campaign consultation. Down the road, we would have to see. I think in order for the hotline to become the support, we would need a bigger conversation, with a lot of other folks. But it's not a bad idea.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and you'll definitely see in the coming weeks too. We have trainings available for supervisors and leaders and members as well. So we'll definitely be here for the foreseeable future, with any questions that may crop up.
All right, we'll do one last check for questions on the phone or through the Q&A. I don't see any online. Operator, any on the phone?
I'm showing no questions.
All right. So hearing that we have none, I want to thank you all for joining us today and for your time. And as Rebecca said, if questions come up later, feel free to email. And thank you all.